Could you please tell me about your time with Sammy Davis Jr? Like me, he adored you, and this comes with much love from Terry.
Thank you, Terry. Apparently, when Sammy was doing a tour of the Hilton chain in Australia, he'd done many tours of Australia during his career, and he chose a different venue each time. And it appears that at one of his concerts, perhaps in Adelaide maybe, he said to people, I don't know what you're doing in here with me tonight. He said, why don't you know, I'm watching Cell Block H or Prisoner or whatever. He said, God, I love that show. And what about that woman? Oh my God, she's like those villainous women from the 40s movies, you know. And so when he came to Melbourne, he requested that Channel 10, or his people spoke to their people, requested to come out to the studio because he wanted to meet me. And they flew him out in the Channel 10 helicopter. He came into the studio, and if anybody has seen the footage of his arrival, we're like a couple of squealing schoolgirls, you know, leaping up and down and hugging and carrying on, because I was as much in awe of him as he was obviously of me. And so that he just loved it. He loved the show. He wanted to be in it. He didn't live long enough to, nor did the show, you know, because it ended that year. But he wanted to come and do a cameo in it, which would have been rather wonderful. And that started a friendship. That day we had lunch in the boardroom, and then he invited me and a couple of other people to his show the next night, which was going to be Valentine's Day. Oh. And I said, oh, well, yes, maybe I'll come on one condition. And he said, you are giving me a condition? I said, yeah, I'll come if you sing Funny Valentine. And he said, it's not in my repertoire for this trip. I said, but you do sing it. So we went along, and he did sing it and dedicated it to me. And then he came back to Australia with Sinatra and Minnelli, and we caught up again. He came to see me in Anything Goes, I think it was. And we had a supper with Altavis, his wife, and a most beautiful moment was afternoon tea, and Jack Thompson was there with his then pregnant wife, and Liza had been out on the harbour, and when she came into the room, she walked up to Jack's wife with the big pregnant belly and put her face down to the fat belly and said, what good is sitting alone in your room? Come hear the music play. See, these are lovely little memories, you know. And then I visited him in Beverly Hills and saw him in Las Vegas in a show that he was doing with Bill Cosby, long before the hideousness happened with Bill Cosby. He was a most charming man. I had a wonderful 20-odd minutes and a drink with him and conversation about politics and crikey knows what else. And then that was about it. And not long after that, I think 91, I think Sam died, round about then. So that's the story of my very brief encounter with the lovely Sammy Davis Jr.
Now, Val, this is a question for you. I don't know from whom, but it's a question I have been longing to ask for years. I'm now kicking myself that I never got round to doing it. So here goes. Was it real steam coming out of the steam press? I love it.
Was it real steam coming out of the steam press?
I love that question.
Actually, it's rather funny because the steam was operated by the two props boys. So that was up to them to turn it on and off. And on one occasion, at the end of the scene, I put my hand on what I suddenly realised would have been a very hot section of the thing. And I went, yeah. And we finished the scene, and then Ray Lindsay, who was our floor manager, came rushing up to me and said, Val, you burnt your hand. No, you idiot, it's not hot.
joint question for Maggie and Amanda, and it relates to Richmond Hill and Prisoner. And so the question is, do you see any parallels in the way in which your characters interacted from both Prisoner and Richmond Hill?
Only that I was still another tart. And I was the barmaid, Connie Ryan, and they gave me a son who had naturally red hair, so they dyed my hair red, and it took years to get the red out of my hair. And I was jumping in and out of bed with every man that came into the series. That's the only thing I had much to do.
I don't think I had much to do with you.
Because you were like the mayoress or something.
Yeah, or some local government, something person, real estate person. Yeah, but there was one wonderful moment with the late Betty. No,
Lucas.
Betty.
Lucas.
Thank you.
Lucas!
I heard you, dear.
I'm sorry.
And we had the most wonderful scene, and I thought, God, this could be a spin-off like Golden Girls, because we just clicked, and I can't even remember what it was all about, but it was so comedic, and we just played off each other, and it was wonderful. And I thought, well, where are these creative people, and why aren't they doing a bloody Golden Girls? But I don't think it didn't have much to do with Amanda. We enjoyed it, though, you know. Once again, it was a job. Bear that in mind, just remember, it's a job.
Patsy, a question for you. Lovely Patsy, a question for you. How long did it take to roll that French roll every day?
I used to get there at the crack of dawn. And sometimes, if we had a new makeup girl there, I used to do the French roll before I left home, because it saved about an hour trying to fix it. But it was pretty simple.
And did you wear it out after work? That's my question to you.
Can't remember. I think I probably just went home in a cab, and when I got home I pulled all the pins out. But it was just, you got used to it.
You didn't get headaches from it, I hope? No, there you go. We've exhausted the French roll, I think. Val, a question to you, and it is, what was it like to perform live at Pentridge Prison? What was it like to perform live at Pentridge Prison?
To perform live at Pentridge Prison in that terrible musical that Betty Bobbitt wrote, you know. Oh, dear God. The problem with the entire production is that the prisoners were told, and it wasn't the lowest it wasn't the lowest criminals. It was pretty hardened criminals that we're performing to. It wasn't Division 1 by any means, it was Division 4, I think. Yeah. Anyway, they were told that they were going to have a close contact visit with their near and dear, their families. And that's what they were expecting. And their families, some of them came along, but they were forced to sit down and shut up and be an audience. And it's not the greatest group of people to have to perform to, believe me. They weren't really happy for us being there. And the security officers were extraordinary, you know, about having to search us, make sure we weren't taking anything, you know, contraband into the prison. So I thought, they're not very bright, those guys, you know. So I'd say, oh, goody, search time. They wouldn't touch me.
Maggie, this is one for you. I got to see you as Madame Morrible 13 times, and you were great. What was it like when the Prisoner cast did a musical?
What musical are you talking about? The thing I did in the UK
It's not signed.
with Lily Savage? Is that what you're asking?
Talk about that anyway.
It seems like that could be.
Yes. It was all Paul O'Grady's idea because his star was rising and he was doing a very big television morning program and a long step from the drag pub where he used to work. And I mean, he had been a social worker, and in his off times he worked a bar in a pub, and it got to the stage where he was obviously going to have an audience, and he wanted to do the West End, so they asked him what he wanted to do, and he said blah blah blah, he wanted to do that. Am I on?
Yeah.
And so it was written, and the first morning reading, the lovely Scottish director, who's now a knight and directs opera, said when we'd finished the first reading, how do you feel about that? I said, when's the next plane back to Australia? It was the greatest load of misogynist shit that I have ever read. It was embarrassingly bad. But however, O'Grady being the genius that he was,
Sorry, ease on, Maggie.
we kind of rewrote it as we went along, even to the point of, during Tech Week, I'd write something one day and he'd reply to it the next day. We really rounded it off and wrote it. Look, it was adult panto, it was crap, but shit, it was fun, It was great fun to be there on stage with Paul. And he's gone too. Yeah, so there you go.
And here is a question for both Pamela and Maggie. How long did it take you to get into the role of the freak? In terms, I'm guessing, of like your mental state, how did you kind of channel that character? That amount of nasty.
Put a uniform on. Put a uniform on and have your hair dragged back.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah.
And
It was there,
a big bun and
Yeah.
severe suit as a lot.
Ian Bradley's idea of this character, which he expressed to a mutual friend in Sydney, he was creating this character and he said, there's only one person I know whom I want to play, a sadistic bull-dyke screw. And those were his words. And I was told that by the mutual friend on New Year's Eve on my way to dinner. And after the Christmas break, I said to my then agent, Bill Shanahan, I said, have you had a call from Grundy's yet? And he said, no, why? I said, well, you're going to. And there it was for 3 months. I was contracted for 3 months. And I walked onto the set nearly shitting myself. I was so fucking nervous. I really was terrified. And I tell you now that that's where the stillness came from. I was just really, really scared. And the first scene was in the laundry, and apparently those lovely extra ladies were terrified. They said, you walked around past us, and we were trembling with fear. And I said, not as much as I was.
And one last question, and this is your way, Val. Can you think of a memorable scene that made you laugh a lot, that didn't go to plan, something you can share with us, and that's from Tina?
I can't.
It keeps cutting out.
Hello?
Yeah, it's on.
What?
It's on.
It's on, is it?
Yep.
A memorable scene, the most memorable scene. Is
That made you laugh a lot, and it didn't go to plan.
Well, every scene we did on a Friday we laughed. We couldn't stop bloody laughing. We were so fucking tired. Everything was funny. But I can't think of anything that was particularly memorably funny. There were a few incidents that were funny, and one of my favourite ones is it was the last, very, very last scene of the year that we were shooting before we went for Christmas holidays. and it happened to be a shower scene. And the shower scenes are ridiculous, you know, they put this in these shower things, and I was always up the front, the closest to the camera. Anyway, we should dip the shower scene, and we finished our dialogue, and all of a sudden, you know, there was no cut. No one said cut, so we're still breathing. And all of a sudden, we were aware that the cameramen have tied their cameras so they won't move, and they're taking their shirts off, and they're all hopped into the showers with us. We kept the cameras going.
They still laugh at me trying to smoke. I don't smoke. That used to give her a big laugh. I coughed my lungs up.
Well, thank you everybody for some great questions.
One little amusing moment. That
Oh,
may
Maggie,
not be
share
aware of.
100, please.
There wasn't much to laugh at with old Ferguson, but I did have a couple of very naughty lines that the writers were really naughty with, and that was sharing some gambling money with Rabe Pierce, you know, whose name was, she was Phyllis Hunt, wasn't she? And I had to give her some money, and the line I was given by the writers was, "Here's your cut, Hunt." I had to say that, and I said that, let me just say it the way you know it's going to be, you know. So I said it the other way. I said, now can we shoot the scene, please? And we all had a laugh. And the other one was with Lizzie Birdsworth saying, Miss Ferguson, I want to go to the dunny, I want to go to the dunny. Make it, Birdsworth.
Here's your cut, Hunt.